All right, let's talk about something fascinating: the silent art of chess pressure. It's this idea that most games aren't decided by some long, drawn-out battle. Nope. They're often lost in a single, quiet, pivotal moment.
Okay, let's dive right in. Every single chess player knows this feeling, right? That sudden, cold realization that a game you thought was going perfectly fine has just completely fallen apart. We're going to look at that exact moment.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How are chess games really lost? Because it's often not that slow, grinding process you might think it is. The truth is actually way more sudden.
You see, according to our source, most games don't just slowly bleed out, they collapse, all at once. It's like a house of cards that was perfectly stable until it wasn't. It's lost in one single moment.
In that moment, it almost always boils down to one single move. A move that might not even look that special at first glance, but believe me, it's about to change absolutely everything.
And behind that one move is one single critical decision, usually made under this kind of invisible, creeping pressure that you don't even realize is there until it's way too late.
And here's the craziest part of it all. This disaster strikes when everything on the board looks completely normal, totally fine. And that's the real mystery we're going to unpack today.
So this leads us to this really key idea. Let's call it the illusion of safety. It's that calm right before the storm.
Just picture it. You're in the middle of a game, right? Both sides have their pieces out. The position feels totally equal, totally balanced. The engine might even say it's 0.00. And most importantly, nothing on the board is screaming, "Danger!"
And right there, that's the trap. That feeling of safety, that is the problem. Because the second we feel safe, our mind relaxes. We let our guard down. And that precise moment is when we are in the most danger.
So what actually causes this sudden collapse from a position that feels so safe? Well, it's something our source calls the art of quiet moves.
Think about it this way. We all know loud moves, right? They're obvious, they give a check, they win a piece, they force a response. But quiet moves, they're a different beast entirely. They create these subtle, long-term threats. They grab control of key squares. And maybe most importantly, they restrict what your opponent can do.
There's this quote from our source that just nails it. The strongest moves are often quiet. They do not shout, they whisper. That perfectly captures this whole idea. It's not about brute force, it's about subtlety. It's the move your opponent just doesn't worry about until it's way, way too late.
So what we're really talking about here is positional pressure. And it's basically an attack on the structure of a position, not the pieces themselves. So in other words, you're not trying to capture your opponent's knight. You're just trying to make that knight's life and the life of all its friends absolutely miserable.
To really get this, to really use it, you kind of have to change the way you think about the game. It's a whole new approach.
See, most of us, when we're playing, we're always asking ourselves this question, right? How do I attack right now? We're hunting for that immediate check, that knockout punch, that loud move.
But the really strong players, they ask a much deeper question. They ask, where will my opponent struggle next? You see how that shifts the focus? It's not about your attack, it's about their future problems. And that's the psychological genius of this whole thing. This way of thinking doesn't just make your position better. It forces your opponent to solve one tricky problem after another under this constant, rising, unspoken pressure. And what happens when people are under pressure? They make mistakes.
So what does all this actually feel like for your opponent? Well, this gets us to the real impact of these quiet moves, the power of discomfort. It sets off this incredible chain reaction. First, a quiet move subtly takes away some of your opponent's options. Then, when they try to defend, they accidentally create a new, tiny weakness somewhere else. Then their pieces start getting in each other's way, they lose all coordination, and then finally the whole thing just collapses from the inside out, like a building whose foundation has been quietly washed away.
I mean, from your opponent's point of view, it is a complete nightmare. All of a sudden, every move feels wrong. The king is running out of places to hide, their powerful pieces are now just clumsy and in the way. And then, out of all that chaos, the loud moves, the tactics, the checks, they just start appearing for you, almost like magic.
Which really brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. If you remember one thing, let it be this. In chess, comfort is dangerous.
The moment you feel totally comfortable and safe, you should probably be worried. And the moment your opponent feels safe, well, that's the perfect time to strike with a quiet move.
So, we'll just leave you with this final thought. In your next game, don't just hunt for the checkmate or the capture. Ask yourself a different question. How are you going to make your opponent uncomfortable?